Welcome to our panel titled Youth and Students Lead the Way. My name is Lauren Jasinski, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. I was a teacher at Oxford High School during the shooting that took place in November 2021, and I've used the last 2 years of my life to become active in the gun violence prevention movement to honor my students, Justin, Hannah, Tate, Madison, and the over 1,000 victims that were created that day. I also work closely with an incredible group of young people that was founded by Oxford students called No Future Without Today. And I'm very proud of the work that we've contributed to this movement. We've got two major goals today to highlight the impressive young people that you see before you who've played an important role in the gun violence prevention movement and to hear from them about what still needs to be done. Let's meet our panelists. Maya Manuel, why don't you go first?
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon for some. I hope you guys are all feeling well today. I wish I could see all of your faces, but I know that's not possible. I'm a student at Michigan State University right now. I am in my last semester, thank goodness. And I'm studying psychology with minors in law, justice, and public policy, and youth and society. I started Sit Down MSU, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, this is me. Hello.
Saylor.
Hi everyone, my name is Saylor Reinders. I'm also a student at MSU. I'm a junior studying comparative cultures and politics and social relations and policy with a minor in Spanish. And I am the co-leader of Students Demand Action. I joined Students Demand almost 3 years ago when Addie Collatz, who you're about to hear from, founded the chapter at Michigan State University, and am now one of the co-leaders. So excited to share more about that.
Excellent. Addie.
Hi, my name is Addie Collatz. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also a senior at Michigan State University. And as Saylor said, I founded our Students Demand Action chapter at MSU 3 years ago. I'm studying experience architecture. Very happy to be here today.
Ragine.
Peace, beautiful people. My name is Ragine Head. I am the youth director with Church of the Messiah, where I oversee most of our spiritual activism and community engagement. I also am the founder and CEO of Voice Detroit, where we organize with youth across Metro Detroit, and we work through all things such as healing justice, transforming truth into power, and learning how to transform some of that pain and trauma that we've experienced over time, and really incorporating that into our true purpose in life. Glad to be here.
Yeah. And Paul.
Great morning, everybody. My name is Paul Jones. I'm a sophomore at Wayne State University, finance major. I'm also a vestry member of Church of the Messiah and playing a role in the Silence the Violence March that we started in Detroit and now has gone statewide. I'm very excited to be here.
As you can see, we have an incredible group in front of us. We're going to try and fit as much information as we possibly can into the next hour, but feel free to ask us some questions via the Q&A section at the bottom there, and we'll get to as many of those as we can either throughout our conversation or at the end. So before we get into kind of some of the long-term impacts and reflections on what we've done so far, can you each tell us a little bit about why you've joined this movement and how working with the organization that you do has empowered you? Addie, do you maybe want to speak first since you started the chapter?
Yeah, of course. So because I started the chapter at Michigan State, I always had a passion for, social activism and human rights, and being in the position of growing up in the lockdowns and, with the presence of school shootings, it's always been kind of on my mind that this needed to change. But I feel like when I really started my advocacy in 2017, my teacher, Laura Wallen, and her unborn son, Reed, were killed in a domestic violence act. And I feel like that really pushed me to want to get ahead in this movement and prevent anything else or any other important people, being taken away in these often preventable situations. So.
What an unbelievable connection. And then to be able to offer that resource to your students, right, when MSU was thrust into the center of that issue too, is just really unbelievable. And so then Saylor, you joined this team at MSU.
Yes, I did. Before I entered my freshman year, Addie reached out to see if I wanted to join, and I immediately said yes, because growing up in what's some call the mass shooting generation. I felt this issue was very close to me. Growing up, when I was 9 years old, when Sandy Hook happened, and I was in high school and Parkland happened. And after Parkland was the first time I joined a protest for gun violence prevention. I remember that distinctly. And even in elementary school, being afraid to go to the bathroom out of fear of a mass shooting happening and being there alone. And looking back at my childhood too, and thinking how normalized it was to think of the idea of someone coming on campus and being violent. And so I immediately wanted to join the movement. And unfortunately, my school joined that list of schools marked by mass shootings. And even leading up to that, there were so many times last year where shootings were hitting very close to home in Des Moines, where I have lots of young cousins who go to school, or in Half Moon Bay, a place where I spend a lot of time when I'm home in California. I'm from California. So it's very important to me to work to end this epidemic.
Now, Ragine and Paul, you're organizing in a very different space than a university campus. Can you tell us a little bit about how your organization started and who you work with?
Yes, so I'll share a little bit more about our work with Messiah. Paul and I actually lead out most of our youth work there. And this year, we played a critical role in planning our annual Silence the Violence March and Rally, which takes place at Messiah. And we actually had the largest turnout this year. We received much support from surrounding areas as we collectively have identified the need to organize and create space, like safe space ultimately, for individuals to show up and know that they are not alone in the fight, but also to invite amazing organizations to the fold to be able to provide resources and an outlet so that we are, one, creating awareness, but also two, ensuring that once we bring people to light and share this amazing information, that we are aware that this is a traumatic event as well, something that's been going on for quite some time with the issue of gun violence. So ensuring that we do have wraparound support and services that are readily available to support them as they are navigating these next phases. And with the organization that I serve with, Voice Detroit, our youth are doing some phenomenal things on the ground, and it's personally has helped me become more involved with healing justice, because across the board, we've recognized the need to just show up and be able to share the emotions that you feel that sometimes you may not be able to actually put into words, and to be able to have safe spaces where you aren't judged, and knowing that individuals will actually listen to your concerns and issues is what ultimately helped inspire me to want to do more organization from a grassroots aspect, because a lot of our youth, they don't have many spaces that are designated as safe spaces for them. And now that we see the issue of gun violence transitioning from communities to now being in schools, our youth are like, well, do we have any safe spaces at this point? Like, are we even okay to go and learn and get an education in these buildings that now no longer belong to us? Like, what does the future look like for youth and education when you can't even, obtain something that is a right? So that's when our young people have really started wanting to get more involved and ultimately spread the word and let our policymakers know, hey, we may be under 18, we may not be able to actually vote, but we're also affected, and we need to rally around the need for these resources and lock arms and really demand the justice that we deserve.
Yeah, amazingly spoken, Ragine. But although our last year event was very big and our biggest, I truly believe, and I'll put this energy out there, that this year will be much bigger. And I hope to see everyone who I can't see right now who's in this webinar. Hope to see a lot of you there. But I've definitely joined this cause because personal experience, really, just seeing a good amount of friends and people who are just 2 degrees away from me taken away by the acts of gun violence, whether it's at the wrong place at the wrong time, or a minor situation that escalated to an unforeseen point where gun violence was brought into the action. So it's something that's definitely affected my day-to-day, but again, not just my day-to-day, people who are close to me, people who are in my circle as well, people around me carry guns, but they don't carry guns because they're just Second Amendment advocates. They carry guns because of fear, because you can really just be at the gas station and someone else is getting into an argument, somehow you get brought into it. And they always say the phrase, I'd rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So again, that's just a mindset of fear. So they're constantly carrying it. And just me as a person who has taken a class, who knows about guns, I don't personally carry because I just pray that I never get brought into this situation. But that's the reality of things in our community. Me being from Detroit, and it's just very interesting how a lot of people in my community are jaded by the sound of gunshots. They could be at an event and hear gunshots and see a bunch of people running and out of fear, and then they're standing there, you know, wondering why people are so nervous, but also at the same time ready to retaliate. So it's a very it's the reality of things, but it's also a very sad side that we're just so jaded to the fact of gun violence. So it shouldn't be a normality of something that we go through on a day-to-day basis. So I've always been just a pure advocate of safe gun carry, but also steering the way of getting to the point of where we feel that that type of retaliation is needed.
Yeah, and I think remembering that we can do all of those things at once, right? That there's never going to be a single solution to these things is really, really important. And Maya, you came into this movement in a few different ways too, but became incredibly active immediately following the shooting at MSU. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I guess I became a part of the movement because of my personal experience in the Lansing community growing up. You know, we would practice, it wasn't even just lockdown drills because of school shootings, or we would practice lockdown drills, and sometimes we would even have like real drills or shelter in place because of the violence that was going on near the school throughout the school day, whether that be robberies or violent altercations that were happening. Lansing has seen gun violence in our community for years. So this idea of lockdown has so many different meanings to me because there's so many different experiences with the lockdown. But I guess it's always been implemented into our realities that we're preparing for something. So when the shooting at MSU happened on February 13th, it kind of pulled me into a position where I felt, you know, I'm tired. My friends are tired. We've seen people lost. You know, our community keeps grieving continuously, and we need real, tangible, life-saving change. And like, I was just a student at the time. I had no affiliation with any organizations. I wasn't involved in anything. I was just in my room, tired and scared. And I just knew for, you know, years growing up, we sat in our classrooms waiting for this. So I decided, you know, whether we're in a classroom or right on the Capitol lawn, the fear that we faced at the time was such a heavily marked part in our lives. And it just stands as a constant reminder that we face these things every day. So, you know, whether we're in classroom or on the Capitol lawn, however scared we are, I knew we need to change. So that's what we did. We went to the lawn, we sat down like we sat in our classrooms for years and years. And now we have the movement, Sit Down MSU. So I think I was empowered by my community because there's such this, I guess there's this aspect of compassion and caring that you can talk to somebody in Lansing and just say hi, and like they'll have a conversation back with you, but yet we're so disconnected. So I want to bring my community back together. This is my home in Lansing, and I want to make sure that, you know, when I let people into my home, they're comfortable. And I want to make sure that people, when they come to Lansing, they feel comfortable, but more importantly, the people who live in Lansing feel comfortable and safe and can finally live a normal life outside of gun violence, and just having this as our daily reality, constant grieving, constant, you know, I guess attending funerals and all. It's really hard. And I know a lot of people in my community struggle with that. And even the fear of their house being shot at, or, you know, them being shot at is very real. And it's not just, when is this going to happen? It's, oh, it's probably going to happen sometime tomorrow or sometime next week. and it's just not fair. So yeah, I think fear in a sense has empowered me to join the movement, because I know how it feels to live with it, and I'm sure we all feel the same. And so, yeah.
I really hope that the audience members can feel this kind of like cohesion. These are not 5 people that work closely together, and just the fact that these stories are so similar across our state, across different experiences, across different schools and neighborhoods is just really profound. And so one of the things that you guys all just kind of touched on is this weight, right, of entering any of our public spaces and having to just constantly think about this, and to know that gun violence can potentially be a threat, even in places that are supposed to be safe for us. And a lot of times we've turned this debate into a mental health or gun safety conversation, right? And I think we all agree that it needs to be both. Ragine and Maya, I know you guys both feel particularly strong about this. Can you talk a little bit about this connection between the mental health toll that has taken on young people and what we can maybe do about it?
Yes, of course. I too find it very interesting how even though we stay and reside in different areas, our experiences are very much the same, which just goes to reassure the need for us to have conversations such as this across the board, because many of us are suffering in silos. We have unfortunate encounters and experiences, and personally speaking, growing up in inner city Detroit, gun violence was normalized. You know, we hear gunshots on a daily, and it's come to a sense of, as a young child, you hear those noises and you're no longer scared. In a sense, you become desensitized. But it hits different when now you're in a school and you have this threat of, now this is a space outside of those neighborhoods, outside of the community that you reside in. This is supposed to be a space, an entity, a building that fosters protection, security, gives you the ability to show up as your full self and to learn, to actually do the work so that you can create a better future. And now even that right is stolen away from you. And so for many of our youth, there's this constant thought of, when's the next time that this is going to happen, right? Like, am I going to be the next victim? How can I protect myself as a young person? What's the right way for me to even react in situations such as this so that I don't place myself in harm's way? There are so many thoughts and questions that occupy their minds that now they aren't able to sit in a classroom and listen to a teacher and do work. Like they are thinking about so many other things, and it's a sense of survival. And now our young people don't have the opportunity to live their lives in the way that they should and not worry about things that beforehand used to be, as some people will call it, adult problems. Now people are realizing this is all of our problems, right? Not just policymakers, not just stakeholders, grassroots organizers, or individuals who are working in that field. The movement affects each and every one of us, and we all are responsible for ensuring that justice is served across the board. But when they talk about youth and mental health, prioritizing their experiences is more important than devaluating the things that they're encountering. And just because they may not always have the language to express what they're feeling, they act out in different ways. And so some youth are saying like, oh, my teacher is just saying I just don't want to participate, or I haven't been as engaged, or my participation is suffering. But they have no idea the mental battles and challenges I have to go through on a daily just to physically be present. So ultimately, listening to them, allowing them to freely share what it is that they're feeling. And as adults in these spaces, making ourselves accountable to the things that they share and ensure that we're following up on those sentiments, but also creating safe spaces for them to just express in the ways that they best see fit. So it may be incorporating more downtime in classrooms, where if you see a student struggling and they may not be completing an assignment on time or within the given time frame, give them something different to do, talk to them, switch the subject. And you never know how just a moment of compassion and understanding can significantly shift the things that they're enduring in this moment. But then also, something that I love to bring to the forefront that we've been having conversations in our spaces locally is just understanding that mental health looks different for many people. There is no one size fits all remedy. We are unique beings and we have different needs. So making sure that we're doing the work and listening to what is actually being said instead of reacting or listening to give a response, and creating on ramps for our youth to participate in different things that may bring them healing from untraditional aspects, and just knowing that as stewards in the work and individuals who are responsible for creating a lasting impact on their lives, that we are just as responsible for doing different techniques and practices to maintain our mental health, because we are only as helpful to one another as we are for ourselves. So prioritizing and being more intentional on showing up as our best selves in whatever space that we encounter, but also knowing you never know what people are going through before you meet them. So always putting your best foot forward and creating additional space for youth to show up and share their voices in the ways that they feel, and not from the individuals who are telling those stories.
Maya, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I won't be able to put it as well as you did, Ragine, but I think I'll bring in a little bit of a personal aspect. I think mental health in under-resourced communities like Lansing, like Detroit, has gone overlooked for a very long time. And I think that's also part of the culture of Lansing. A lot of people tend to overlook it themselves, but unknowingly, I think so many suffer and struggle with depression and anxiety, and there's so much grief all surrounding gun violence. And when all of this began, in my personal experience, I did not have consistent and easy access to therapy services, and I didn't have the proper resources to heal, and eventually it prolonged my healing process for almost 5 months before I was able to get connected with therapy. And 5 months of struggling alone and silently is really difficult because, like I said, between that time, I was struggling with so much guilt and pain, and I was taking on all these emotions that I'd never experienced. And it was a silent struggle that so many of us, including myself, are facing, but no one talks about. And, even today, when you go to campus, I know people are still struggling with the shooting. However, I'm not hearing about it, and I'm not able to connect with my peers on it because they don't want to talk about it, and they choose to stay silent about it because maybe they haven't had the proper way of expressing and healing their trauma. But due to gun violence, we're seeing higher levels of PTSD and higher levels of anxiety and depression, and it's completely erased my generation's sense of safety and security. And I think it's important that we introduce these ideas to different communities that are equipped to handle their specific needs. Like Ragine said, no, it's not one size fits all. And I think it's important that our communities cope properly, but I also think it's extremely important that we equip them and give them the resources to do so properly, to make sure that they're nurtured and cared for just as much as we do a small child. Because when this happened in February, when the shooting happened in February, you almost feel incapable of taking care of yourself and incapable of self-care. And it's something that you don't talk about. And you just continuously, especially if you're an activist, and I'm sure a lot of you can understand this, throw yourself into work because work for us is healing. But it's also really heavy. And, from my own background, I want you to know that your experiences are valid and self-care is so necessary. And even if that means shutting off your phone at night and doing some self-care instead of, doom scrolling on TikTok, whatever that might be for you, just shut off your phone. And whether you like art, meditation, music, drawing. I'm not good at either of those things, but do something that takes care of yourself, takes care of you. And I was very fortunate because I was able to get therapy services through Access in Dearborn. And I'm able to talk to someone who not only may understand my experiences, but someone who looks like me. And I never realized how important it is to have someone that understands your culture and your background. And Middle Eastern Access is a Middle Eastern organization. But I didn't realize how easy it was to utilize services like these and how necessary it is to actually care for ourselves. Even though we say that this work is healing, it's really heavy. And I've heard countless stories from survivors and so many experiences from students, and just I want all of them to know that their experiences, no matter what they are validated and acknowledged and cared for, especially in this community. It's really difficult, and I'm giving you guys this answer because it's my honesty, it's my feeling. And we talk about mental health, but I think we forget to talk about ourselves within that. And my story, whether it might be important or not, maybe some of you connect with the feeling of isolation and loneliness because we're pushing for so many adults to help us and to teach us. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Access to mental health was a huge issue for my staff immediately following the shooting at our school because it created such an incredible need in a very short amount of time for a lot of people, right? That every single person in our community was trying to find out very quickly how to get support. And so, a mass incidence of violence is very different than daily community violence and the kind of support that's needed. And so like we're saying is that, all these different survivors and all these different people have to be addressed in some different ways. But we can't feel like we're out there on our own. And the brain energy and the time and the money that it takes to pursue these resources is really huge. So we can have a whole separate conversation about that either, obviously, but like I wanted to make sure that we were acknowledging, right, some of those challenges. We've kind of been dancing around the issue a little bit. I'm going to forward this recorded session to all of my local elected officials because these are the things that people need to hear. But I'm just curious if we could get a room full of political leaders together and put them down in front of all of you. What do you think is the most important thing that you'd want to say to them? Or what do you think is missing from conversations about gun violence at either the local, state, and national levels? Saylor, I'm curious about your take about this, but I do want to hear from everybody.
Yeah, I think first of all, guns are the #1 killer of young people today. So I'd remind them of that. This is really important. It's affecting all of us, and it's vital that we continue to address this crisis. And the second piece the one piece I really feel is missing from the conversation is culture change, because we talk a lot about laws that need to be passed, and laws are so important, but I think that culture change can complement those laws and create an overall change to work to end gun violence. And so part of that culture change could be combating myths like that guns make us safer. So access to a gun increases the likelihood of a suicide by 3 times, or increases the likelihood of a domestic violence incident turning deadly by 5 times. And so I think those are conversations we really need to have. Also talking about how, while mass shootings are the type of violence we see most frequently in the news, gun violence encapsulates so much more than that. And mass shootings make up, I think, like about 1% of overall shootings. And so that tells you just how much gun violence is occurring on the daily basis. And so I think there are lots of conversations we need to have about just the nuances and the overall gun violence crisis that we're not necessarily having at local levels, at state and federal levels. And I think when we have those conversations, we can focus on finding those educated, multifaceted approaches to ending gun violence, including those laws that we passed last year, and then working from there on how we implement those in our communities through education and such. Yeah.
Yeah, great points. And we also we love pets in Zoom meetings, so we're good with that. Paul, what about you? If you could have a room full of politicians, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so that was just a very profound point as far as the culture change, because it's not just the what's on paper, because on paper doesn't initiate what's on the inside. So one thing I would say is we call them political leaders for a reason. I believe that leaders lead and they take the forefront of issues. So when it comes to an issue that deals specifically with the quality of humanity, especially in what Maya said earlier, what we call our home, I believe that political leaders take that opportunity, whether you're pro Second Amendment or against the Second Amendment. I believe that at the end of the day, that the mission we're all going after is the quality of life and humanity, and the mitigation of killing of innocent people. So I believe that we have to look at our leaders to take the bull by the horns and say, hey, no matter what you do, this is what our laws are now. You can go in, you can buy your shotgun, you can buy your handgun, but you do not have to think of things in this way. And we have to look at them, because we look at them at the end of the day, whether it's our mayor, governor, or president. If our senator is saying, go buy all the guns you want and do what you want with them, a lot of people are looking at them as an authority figure. And so if it seems okay to the leader, the people who look up to them will follow suit. So I believe our leaders have to come, at the end of the day, no matter what we agree on as policy, they have to really look at each other and say, hey, at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that the quality of the people in our home are looking at us in a substantial way, as far as gun violence, as far as the quality of humanity. So I would say our leaders need to stand up and lead, because I feel like when we turn on the TV, when we turn on anything, the people who are advocating, a lot of the people at least who are advocating against gun violence aren't the political leaders. They almost want to take the back seat and make it seem like it's out of their hands, because they only have something to do with the paper aspect of things. So I believe our leaders need to stop thinking so much about their roles as the senator and the vote and anything like that, and actually stand up and lead our people, towards a place where humanity is going to go to a greater position.
Wow, love that. Ragine, what do you think? What would you say?
Yeah, I honestly think you all hit the nail right on the nose. There are some very common similarities across the board, but ultimately, guns are not what kills people. People kill people. There are individuals behind those guns. And the whole conversation around there needs to be a shift in culture, right? Like conversations are happening at local, state, and national. Storytelling and narrative change have been taking place all around, which we love to see that people are actually talking about it. But what's being done about it legally? What laws are actually being passed? We have bills that are being drafted and conversations that have been stuck in different committees, but we need to get some traction. Like we need to get the wheels turning and actual outcomes to be enforced, so that legally people can not only be held responsible, but resources and awareness can continue to be created across the board. Because what we're experiencing is the lack of care for humanity. There's a sense of when you think about politics, a lot of people think business. They think bureaucracy, and that's a culture in and of itself. But when it's so far removed from the conversations of the people, those who are directly at the heart of what's happening and experiencing these traumatic events, there's a large gap in the middle that we're missing. And so we need to ensure that we're doing what we need to internally and externally to make sure that the voices of those who are often unheard or left out of those conversations are being tracked from a local level, and smaller rooms where organizing is happening on the back, but actually tracking that to national levels and ensuring that bills are being passed, and that we do have politicians who aren't just making commitments behind the scenes and showing up and supporting a lot of these initiatives and acts, but you're going just as hard for those community members when you're in those rooms that many of those individuals may not have access to. So of course, being committed committed and serving as trusted leaders in that space, but also ensuring that this is a spiritual warfare as well. You know, I'd be remiss to represent Church of the Messiah and not mention the attacks that we are facing spiritually. There are many changes and shifts that are happening all around, and to know that we first have to be the individuals to make that commitment to be a part of the change for something greater. It starts with us living that lifestyle. So if we here are on this panel and we're sharing about advocacy and education and the need for us to collectively take a stand against the act of violence, we have to do that for violence across the board, not just gun violence, right? Like, this all stems from very common aspects and issues that we face as a people. So there's no way to work on gun violence separately when we have so many other things that are also affecting us as a people. So knowing that we're doing the work in our respective movements, but collectively we have a purpose to make change across the board on a general aspect, no matter what that, as Pastor Barry recently said, demon may be. There are many demons, if you will, in this world that we're facing, seen and unseen. Poverty is a demon. Instability is a demon. You know, knowing that we have gun violence, that's a demon. And we have the power individually to address that and demolish what those issues may be. We just first have to make that commitment ourselves and know that this picture is bigger than each of us individually, and we all have a role in this movement. It's just finding what that space and that purpose is and making sure that you're being an advocate and a good steward to get out and do the work, however that may look. If there's an issue that you see, you can do whatever you're able in your means, and knowing that that applies to lawmakers as well. We know you all are elected to get into office and serve these specific purposes. However, you're a human at the end of the day, right? Like, you're not just a political official. You're an actual human being, and above all else, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, wherever you stand, you're an advocate for gun rights or not. It doesn't matter. People are dying. You know, that's really what we need everyone to understand. Babies, more importantly, are dying. Individuals who are innocent, who deserve to live happy, healthy lives free of the trauma that's coming from this issue. And to know that this is a leading cause for why many of our youth and young adults are dying, I implore all lawmakers and officials to lay down the titles, lay down the roles, the things you thought that you were coming into office to do, and know that there is a greater issue at hand. And until you wake up and recognize that humanity is at stake, then we all are not going to get to where we need to be when we need to get there, because there's a significant lack in understanding and the need for us to be able to rise above a lot of the things that we may encounter or think is what we should be doing, and tap into source, right? Like, get right with God, no matter your belief, whether you're religious or not. We all are spiritual beings here having a human experience, and whatever that source is for you, know that there is something greater, and there's a possibility for us to all play our part and do what needs to happen in order for justice that we all need to see to come about. But it won't happen until we're able to just put our differences to the side and recognize what the mission is at hand, and that's life, eternal life. And I'm confident that we are on the mission and on the right path by just listening to all of the panelists here and the work that we're all doing, but reassuring that we're as great as we are individually, again, as we are collectively. And we do have individuals who actually get paid to do the work that needs to happen. So we're just asking again, so just Saylor mentioned, do the work, lead, do your job, and know that if not, the youth are here, and we will continue to add to the movement and put fire under you, in a sense, to make sure if you don't do it, somebody's going to take your place, and they're going to come in office and do what needs to be done. So either way, it would happen. We're just asking you to get on board and get in agreement, because you're going to get left behind.
Yeah, you so powerful. But yeah, definitely one thing you mentioned is just about how they're continuing to draft bills. And, you know, obviously America isn't new to gun violence and mass shootings, but we feel as if there's a lot of youth definitely feel as if there's no motion going on when it comes to the bills, when it comes to the proposals. So we know that it's a hard thing to do, to almost try to please everyone, but we at least want to feel as if policymakers are trying. And so when we sit on bills, when we sit on proposals for years, we almost feel as if there isn't an actual effort going on. So that's one thing that I definitely would be addressed if I was in a room full of policymakers right now. That we just feel as if there's no motion, there's no actual commitment to these bills and proposals right now. They're almost put on the back burner, it feels like.
To almost bounce off of that, if that's okay. I think it's because they're lacking discomfort. Like everybody that's coming to them and screaming and saying, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. They're uncomfortable already because they made us uncomfortable. And why don't we have the right to make them uncomfortable back? And it's
no urgency.
we want to necessarily put them in that position of discomfort in an, in a way of spite, but it's just feel where I'm coming from for a moment. Listen to my words, understand the passion behind us coming to you today, and push those bills out. And I think that's, that was the goal of the first sit down. We literally had politicians sitting on the floor in like 20 to 30 degree weather. And it's because we've been sitting down for our whole lives, whether it be 20 to 30 degree weather, we've been waiting, and they're just too comfortable in their positions. They're in a position of power, not a position of passion. And I think that's where they went wrong, because I think so many of them get comfortable in their seats. They get comfortable in the idea that they are a politician, that they need to move up, that they need to keep going, that they need to get all of these things done, yet they're not doing anything. So I'm not sure where the conversation, dissolved. But they started there for a reason. They were in their position for a reason. And I think that discomfort is what brings them back to the ground to say, oh, no, you're not a balloon. You can't just float and hope that nobody's going to catch you, You're a weight now that we have to carry because we put you there and you're not doing your job. And so I think it's discomfort that we're missing because they're too comfy. And that's why I'll look at them. I'll look at them and I'll be honest with them. And I'll tell them, this isn't fair. This is what I feel. Listen to me, hear me, feel me, understand us, understand the movement, understand that when you're fighting for others' lives, this includes your own as well. This includes your children's life. This includes, your family members, your cousins. This is everybody. You are a part of everyone. This is no imaginary audience that you're catering to. This is your reality as well. And when you're out of that seat, you're going to say, excuse my language, damn, I should have done more. And I'm going to come to you and say, yeah, you should have, because we're here and we're waiting. And why did I waste my time to go out 15 minutes to my polling station, vote you in, to have you do absolutely nothing? You're not a celebrity. You're a politician. You're public service. You're here for our urgency, not your own goals. You're here for us. And I think that's my message to political leaders. As much as I'm grateful and gracious that some of you take the time to truly be people, there are so many of you who are waiting on that chance for success. And I hope you understand, yeah, it's a public servant, like Paul said in the comments, but I hope they can understand that we put them there. And I don't have to put you there again. I can advocate against your, because if you do the work, if you're here and I have maybe 4 years to do something, then you better take that full 4 years to do something. And if I saw that you did enough, I'll put you back. But they're too scared. They're not consistent enough. They're hesitant, and that's just not enough for me. That's not enough for us. And, hopefully as young people, we can sit there with our energy and get mad at them. But we start with a conversation. The sit down, we started with a conversation. We were eye level with them. If not, I was looking down, but we were, in a position to say, you're just here with us. You don't belong on the stage. You belong on the ground, looking at us who are on the stage. Like, we're here to tell you what to do. You're not here to tell us the timeline of when it's going to be done, because we put you there for a reason. So.
Love it. Mic drop. Agreed. So Addie, I I mean, I see all of us shaking our heads, right? I think that we're on the same page with this message and just waiting for people to step up, right? But as a member of a national organization like Students Demand that does work really closely with like political leaders, right? You've been in these rooms, you've talked to these people. So is there anything else that you want to be able to say that you feel like isn't said, that, you know, has been, like I said, has been missing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I just want to like say a shout out to everybody, all my people in the youth panel. You guys are amazing and you like took the words from my mouth. So I appreciate it. It's always nice to, you know, hear those voices, especially when we don't get hurt a lot. But yeah, I remember when we were after the shooting last year, we had the opportunity to go to the Senate and, you know, speak to them at the Capitol and talk with these legislators face to face and not in a, you know, an environment where we were equals. And I thought that was really powerful having that opportunity. But, you know, something stuck in my head. A lot of what these legislators reiterated is that we need more people like you. We need more young people. We need more of you to do the work. But again, as you know, I mean, I don't want to sound blunt, but it's like, why were you, you know, of service? Why were you hired? Why are you in this position? And I think a lot of this passion, and maybe if it sounds blunt from the rest of my, you know, peers, it's because we're frustrated and we're angry. We have put you guys in a position of power, and ultimately you're failing us. Our friends are dying, our families are dying, our, you know, people we look up to are dying, and we need change. We need change. We don't need, you know, just trying to climb the political ladder. We're frustrated. This is a very hard time to be a human being in this world. And I think we need to understand and have empathy, not only for people like us, but people who are different from us. That is, I swear, I feel like empathy could fix everything if everyone just had a little bit more empathy and we could understand what people go through, the challenges people have every single day. And why we're sitting here and being so passionate about this topic is because we have seen the six of us have seen this experience, these, you know, horrible experiences that have happened to us, but we sit here and we demand change because we know, in the greater end of everything, we know if this is fixed, we will live a better, happy life. We will be better people. So I think empathy and, you know, sincerity and what you mean as a leader is so important. When you say you're going to help these people, fight for these people, sincerity is so important, and not, you know, a political gain, but sincerity to the people that you are here to help. So just being honest with people and that sincerity is really, really important.
I love that. I'm going to call an audible and take a question from the chat because I think that this is really related to what we're talking about right now. And I think Addie, you're touching on this a little bit here. But somebody in the chat said several community members and politicians seem to only address school mass shootings and firearm injuries in a school once they experience it within their own communities. How can we instill this urgency in them before it reaches their own? Would anyone like to chat about that or see, you know, comment on some of the differences that we've seen, like before and after 2 mass school shootings in Michigan, or how that feels to be in these other communities?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm putting you on the spot with a question out of order, but I just think it's really important.
I think that it's really hard. Like Addie said, empathy is really important, but I think sympathy is something that we lack in politics. And it really is hard to look at someone and say, understand my experience, when they have no clue what it feels like. And I think that, you know, it's done through conversation, and it's so difficult, I think, to put somebody in your position, that if you can help them understand your position, if we put the right people there, they're there to understand us. They don't have to be us. They don't have to understand our specific experience, but to sympathize with us is extremely important. And I think that looking at them as people is obviously very important here, because they are people, but understanding and having them understand that I'm also just another person. I think Ragine was kicked on accident, but But I think, you know, instilling this urgency is going to take a lot of time. And it's unfortunate because all of that time that it takes, by the time we're almost there, something happens. And I think we could see that, you know, with Oxford. You guys worked so hard. And I know like Senator Rosemary Bear said, you know, these bills got pushed 5-6 months in advance. And I was like, and I wish I didn't have to have that conversation with her because I didn't want to know that. But also it's unfortunate that it had to take something so tragic to just push them up. And it was possible that they could just push them up. And it was they were very aware that it was possible to do so. These bills were in front of them. They could have put in the extra work. You know, they had all hands on these bills. Everyone was working. Everyone was working hard. And if we did that one at a time, they're trying to take like 15 steps at a time, like big jumps, just one at a time, reminding our politicians that they also have to work with each other, just one at a time, even if they don't agree. I think the disagreement is what causes this big gap between understanding urgency, because it's this issue of liberal or Republican or Democratic or Republican, and it's not an issue of people are people, you know? So I think having them understand that this could easily happen to them, but also that we put them there and this happened to us, can happen to us, is also an important aspect of education. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think
Yeah, I think so, right? So I'm hearing all these themes about empathy, sympathy, right? Listening to each other, right? Giving people the opportunity to have these kinds of conversations, I think is a huge step, right? And holding people accountable, right? Like you said, we vote for a reason. We all know voting is incredibly important, but it's just a super small portion of holding people accountable, right, to the things that they say they're going to do for us. And I think our job for 2 to 4 years is to remind them of that, right? That we are the ones that do have that control and power. Yeah, unfortunately, we did lose Ragine. She's working on getting back to us so she can have some closing statements. But any other comments about this or anything specific that you'd like to share that you think would help boost this urgency so that we don't have to just wait for another tragedy?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
add on. Oh,
Go ahead, Saylor.
are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
I'd add that I think some people assume that they have to be a survivor to join the movement, and that is absolutely not true. I think also a lot of people in the US, even if they don't identify as a survivor, have been impacted some way by gun violence, or even just the threat of gun violence impacts us all in the US. And so I think that that's very important for people to know that they can join this movement with urgency and to work so that they don't have to become a survivor themselves. Yeah.
Well put. Addie?
Yeah, of course. I think, that urgency just, starts from seeing people who look like you also in this, this realm of community. I think, empowering Black voices, queer voices, Middle Eastern voices, like all of these different types of people can help push the urgency to understand that this is not, a one community problem. This is not affecting one type of people. It is affecting, nationally, globally. And we need to understand and take that responsibility that we need to put people who look like us or who look like our peers in these positions of power to understand that this can get done, and that we understand that if we do work together, stuff can get done, and that people have different perspectives and different point of views. And I think that's so important to understand that, again, like we've said, there, mass shootings are only 1% of, gun violence. We need to understand how these are impacted in our communities in a day-to-day life, and understand and listen to those people and give them a platform that they deserve, because this not only affects, our communities, but it affects, tons and tons of people nationally. And we need to understand, by uplifting those people's voices and those experiences, that that's the only way we can solve this problem.
Yeah, beautiful. There was another question in the chat that I want to make sure we have time for before we kind of wrap up some final thoughts with this. From Alex King, she said, I volunteer as a crisis counselor on a crisis text line. How can I be a better listener or advocate in conversations with people who have been directly impacted by gun violence? And she also says, thank you for your advocacy. what are some tips for people of things that do help, or maybe things not to say when you're directly related to some of these issues?
One short answer, I would say, when it comes to direct gun violence, like say a very close friend passes away, it and it's kind of counterintuitive because you may feel as if you can understand their feelings, but also you don't precisely understand what they're going through. So again, you can have that sympathy and say, I can see why you're so upset and why you're feeling this way. But it's really weird. People do not like when you say, I understand what you're going through when you haven't. But if you have, it is good to hear like, wow, they're in this position and they made it out okay but when you haven't, it almost hurts a little bit to hear I understand when they haven't been through a similar situation. So that's one short thing I would say, because I've experienced that on both ends, one as a listener and then one as someone speaking as well.
Great point. Anybody else, things that you think are helpful when talking to survivors and victims?
I know I have a lot of experience with grief and loss, and when I explain to people, or I, tell people, hey, I've lost this person, I think some people, they get uncomfortable or they want to bounce around the topic because they don't want to make you uncomfortable or sad. But I've noticed from my healing experience, talking about the person and having people who will let me like talk about them and talk about how they were with me, how they treated me, and how they impacted me so much in my life. It almost makes it feels like their presence is still here, because they are still with me. And giving that space for people to talk about them and tell the experiences of how they were so impactful in their life is so important, and not to dance around the subject. And of course, I'm not saying if, somebody is visibly uncomfortable talking about it, but if just let people speak about the people they've lost, it's so important for them to let their legacy move on and, hear that those experiences and love that they had for that person. So it's really, really important to just listen to people, I think, in any aspect.
I agree. I think a lot of times people are throwing solutions at us when we're grieving, and it's how do you have an answer to grief, so it's like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried? I don't want to try anything. Like, I just am in pain, I'm hurting, and I just need you to listen. I think as somebody who just joined therapy for the first time in my life in July, I think the biggest thing that's helped me is the fact that my therapist, I told her, I don't want advice. Please don't give me advice. I don't know how you give advice on grief, maybe coping mechanisms, but I just want to be heard. I want to say what's on my mind. And I want to give all these little intrusive thoughts to you that I wouldn't just throw at my friends, because they're also going through something similar. And that's okay. We can talk about these things with our friends and it's beautiful. But there's also some things that I think it's helpful to just tell someone that you're not necessarily affiliated with when it comes to friendship or relationship. It's just a therapist or someone who's there to listen to you. Listening is the biggest form of communication. Because I think when you can understand someone's experiences and not necessarily understand someone's experiences, but understand what put them in that experience and understand why they might have the feelings they do, and helping me, not necessarily telling me what to do or telling me how to feel, but helping me understand why I'm feeling the way I do. And that's why I do psychology. Like, why maybe one day I'll be a therapist after I get my master's, but listening is the biggest superpower you can have, because we're constantly yelling and shouting and yelling, all these things back and forth, but we don't feel like we're heard. We feel isolated. We feel tired. We feel all this grief. And it's just, oh, I don't want to put that on you. I don't want to put that on you. And we're constantly all telling each other that, but we're not putting anything on each other. We're taking it from you. If I have so much space in my heart to take your pain, because I know you should have some, I guess, for that to be reciprocated. But as a therapist, as a crisis counselor, whoever you are, listening is the biggest superpower, because a lot of us in this field too, or especially if you're talking to an activist, it's really hard because we're so self-aware of how we're feeling, and we just need to talk. Like, we just need to say it out loud again. And we've talked to our friends about it multiple times, but I think it's that therapist is almost like a chest, like I'm putting my thoughts into this chest, and I'll bring them out when I need to, but I also know that they're safe here, and that it's stuck here. It's just with me and you, but I look at it as a conversation with me and myself, just not my intrusive thoughts. So that's all I have to say.
No, that's excellent. And yeah, Addie, I'm really, really glad that you brought that up, because I think one of the things that's been most helpful to me is that I love talking about my students. And I think people get afraid to ask, right? And I love thinking and talking about the things that I've learned from them, right? And trying to be a leader and embody the kindness that Tate brought to all of his classes. And Justin was so funny. Like, he just was always cracking jokes, usually not where he was supposed to be. Right, and always getting people to laugh. And Hannah was so kind, and she was always involving anybody in class into conversations and groups that they wouldn't normally be included in. And Madison was so caring and artistic, and like knew how to express herself better than a lot of adults do, right? And so, like, just thinking about the ways that we can continue to learn from these people that we love. And thanks for letting me do that, right? Because these things are just so important. And Saylor, like you said, another like reminder to every single person, right, is like, join us, right? The best possible thing that you can do to show us that you care about this issue is to help us do something about this, and don't stop talking about it. I know that we're super close on time, and these conversations can be really heavy. We've already talked a little bit about what some of these challenges are, right? As being a young person and maybe not being taken seriously, or not feeling like our community plays a role in these conversations. But what are some of the things that give you hope? What are some of the bright spots that we can look to? At a risk of being too Pollyannish, right? What are some of the things that keep us going? Paul, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm definitely a introspective person, but I love to look at the broader picture of things. So I'd say this to people: just look at how much this country and world has accomplished. And I think it's a cherishment, or a blessing more say, that we can live in a place with a community that can provide heat, food, and water with one another, without colliding to the point of disaster. And yes, we do have problems. Yes, we know the country and the world as a whole isn't perfect. There's always going to be disputes and everything, but as a whole, in my eyes, we're doing okay. We're doing pretty good. We're able to continue to have growth, to have developments, to have transition periods where things just get a lot better. And so it's just, it makes me think that, hey, we're not at the end of this. We're not nothing. We're very smart people. We're very capable creatures, to be able to relate to one another, to be able to build with one another, and without this all tearing apart, because we could be living in a completely different world where we don't have power lines, where we don't have the aggregation to be able to provide food for everybody. So we're able to collaborate. We're able to come to an agreement with one another. So it's like, why lose hope on such a powerful species? Why lose hope on, because you have best friends, you have family who you care about. And why just because some of the people who are causing issues, we lose sight of all the good that can happen. So just continue to think that there are bad people out there who can turn good, who can come to the lighter side, and create better opportunities for all of us. So just think about that, in a sense. It could be much worse, and things have gotten better time and time again. So why can't they get better now?
And I'll say this really quick, like, you guys are my heroes. Like, seriously, like, you guys are what give me hope. And stepping away from the crowd for a second, just you guys are seriously like, and I can say this not in a position of an adult telling me like you're the future of politics and you're the future of our everything. Like you guys seriously give me so much hope. Just hearing you guys speak and being in this panel with you guys is healing, and it helps to talk and it helps to share. And you guys are seriously amazing people. And just, I hope you can understand how impactful the words you give and the lessons you share and just the passion you're willing to just be so proud of. I hope you can understand how far that's taking you, but not only you, this is a weight that we're all pulling together. So you're also helping me get farther within my hope and my healing. So that's all I have to say, but you guys really give me hope.
Oh, you guys are, look at that, Ragine, full of hearts. I just, it's weird to be so smiley, right? In such a heavy session. But like, if this doesn't prove to anyone why we continue to do this and put ourselves in these positions, like, I don't know what could possibly help you. Anybody else? Things that give you hope, things that keep you moving.
I can go. Well, I was also going to say similar to Maya, just being with fellow youth activists really gives me a lot of hope. And I think like my friendships with Maya and Addie have grown so much in the past year because we're able to sit and have these vulnerable conversations and about the range of emotions that come up when you're doing this work. And I'm so grateful that we have that space to share in that so that we feel less isolated and just have those supporters when we're doing this. And I would say the other thing that gives me hope, or that I kind of go to when I need to, I guess, ground myself or feel better, is to go on a walk or go outside. I love nature. And so just like this past weekend, I was feeling super overwhelmed about the 1 year mark coming up, and just taking a moment to walk outside, listen to some music really brings me back to just a space where I can sit and just feel what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And as we know, light I outshine darkness every time. Anywhere, everywhere, darkness will be cast out. So the work that we're doing gives me hope to know that there is a better side that we're working towards. There is hope on the other side, but ultimately, this is a double-edged approach, because just as much of the challenges and obstacles that we have faced and overcome, and just the inequity all around, has inspired and empowered many youth across the board to see things for what they truly are. A lot of these lies are getting exposed, the help of social media, technology. So the truth is being spread, and I am confident that more and more young adults and individuals are being awakened to the light, and we're starting to live in our truths and demand what we deserve, what we know we are capable of having and possessing, but also to know that there's a need for healing across the board, and it's not going to happen until we get involved. So seeing so many youth-led organizations that have been created, and seeing our young people still show up, organize protests, organize sit-ins and press conferences, and they're controlling their own narratives and sharing their own stories despite what mass media may be promoting. They are letting individuals know, hey, we are here. No matter how much you may try to silence us, how much you may try to block us away from certain resources and take away our access and agency, especially given that there's this whole thing where we know legally you're not 18 or you're not 21, you can't do certain things. And so for a group of individuals who have been deprived from access to a lot in society, to not take that as their one all final answer, we still continue to show up and create alternative approaches to ensure that justice is served in the most untraditional, radical ways is amazing. And that's inspiring for folks across the board to just get active and get involved however you may be able to. There's no one way for you to be a part of the movement or to tell your story. And the power of storytelling, just as it was mentioned during the panel, it works wonders. Literally, just sharing your truth, sharing your experience. You never know who needed to hear that or who's listening and who can take away just the smallest bits from that story and know, hey, I'm not alone. Wow, there's someone else out there who's going through exactly what I'm going through. Maybe I'm worthy, right? Like maybe I am capable of sharing this story and helping someone else. And then all it takes is just one person to speak up and speak out, and you'll motivate or you'll impact somebody else, and then they'll go and impact somebody else. It's a ripple effect. So it's all about just being there, showing up, and knowing that we have each other in this, right? We're not alone. And despite what others may try to say, we're winning. We are winning. Victory is ours. Greatness is on the horizon. And I am certainly looking forward to all of the work that you all are doing and looking forward to just showing up and supporting more just outside of my community, because I know there's much more work that needs to be done and we can do it. It's just all about collecting our resources and unifying across the board.
All right, so this is going to be the hardest part of the entire morning. You have 30 seconds for a final thought so that we don't hold anybody up from their next sessions. But anything else that you would like to leave our audience with, things that you don't feel like were said, or just any reminders for people? Okay, take a second to gather your thoughts.
Quick reminder, because I'll just because we have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that like I'm 21 and we need you to stop looking at us and putting so much pressure on us to pick up this random weight that you're all of a sudden dropping, because it is really hard to carry so much. And when we haven't learned to properly lift all of it, I need you to teach me, and I need you to work with me, and I need you to mentor me, walk with me. But most importantly, I need you to understand that this is your journey as well, not for me to take from you. So essentially, when you step back, you're stepping back from people who don't even know their ABCs yet. And we need you. And I hope you know you're so capable of so much, no matter what age you are. And just don't let go of what's important, because we're tired. I'm tired. I'm 21. And this just gets so much harder without you guys. And yeah, that's all.
Great.
I can keep mine short and sweet. I would say always be open to listening and learning. Always like seriously keep learning. And no matter what your age, no matter your status as a survivor, you can always join this movement, and we really need you. So please join us.
Ragine?
And I'll hop in. I'll sum it up in three points. So you are enough. You were created for greatness. Don't mind the naysayers. The second one is do it alone, do it afraid. That is when you need to step into that superpower. When you feel something in your gut and you're like, I don't know, I don't feel equipped. Do it and just know that everything will be supported. Make sure that you're staying rooted in your foundation and values, and the rest will align. And then the third point, take action, get involved. There are so many organizations or entities out there that are looking for individuals like you, and safe spaces that do exist. Just get out and do the research. But also, if you don't see it, create it. You have the power to create whatever you envision in your mind and know in your heart needs to happen. Make it happen, because it won't happen until you do.
Addie?
Yeah, I would just reiterate what like all of my panelists said today. Empathy, listen to people. If you don't believe you can see a change, do it for yourself. It's so important to take action. Thank you so much.
Whether through policies change or through social change, the mission is to stop the killing of innocent people at the end of the day. For those Second Amendment advocates, the true mission is not to take your guns away, but to build a line of respect and order to keep everyone in this amazing country feeling safe in what they call home. So don't just stand for policy and what's on paper, stand for people.
I need that on a t-shirt. I'm overcome with emotion. These opportunities are so great for all of us, and thank you for participating today and listening and sharing in all of this. I think my closing thought would be a little bit what Maya touched on. One of the things that I've noticed a lot is when I attend events with all of you or attend events with No Future Without Today, is that all adults stop me and just say how touched they are and how moved they are and how you guys are our future. Yes, those things are all true, but like, you're not dead yet, right? You're here with us. If people insist on being in Congress endlessly, it means that you could be an advocate endlessly. And all of you are very much proving to us that you are never too young to speak out for the things that you believe in, but you're also not too old. And so we need everyone alongside us, because it isn't fair the way that previous generations have let you all down. And we can find a huge community in working to make things better, but we do all need the help. So thank you so much for sharing your time with me and being so honest and being so loving and caring for us. So thank you to everybody. Huge round of applause, virtual round of applause, right, for our panelists. You can check out the recording as soon as we're done here, and really enjoy your afternoon sessions. Okay, thanks everybody.